picture. You know, that need money, you know, because they have to look tough.
Right.
They can't be anything else. And for at least for black men, all of this comes from our oppression that we've been talking about and what all of that means. But if we can start, you know, once again, talking about what those systems of racism are and shift that, we can shift manhood as well. We can shift all of the dominant cultural groups if we start telling different stories, different narratives.
We have to tell different stories. I mean, the popular music in our culture right now, gangster rap is sort of waning right now, but it was the most popular element of our music.
Right.
And just like you write an advertisement to make people want a certain pair of shoes, like for some reason you just wake up in the morning, you just gotta go get those shoes.
Right.
This music is and was an advertisement for you to want to be in prison.
Right.
You know, the lifestyle, the drugs, the abuse of women. It was a cultural advertisement to go to prison.
Right.
And you know, and that's what's happening.
Right. And
you know, like they are cooperating in their own oppression by the choices that they're making. Yes, like they're poor, and because they're poor, they have fewer options and fewer resources, but they are also making negative choices that are helping the forces that want to oppress them.
but that's strategic because
Yes.
the music industry
Yes.
makes sure those are the voices that are heard. Because the ones who have legitimate voices have to go underground. But that's very strategic. That's what young brothers see. I mean, that's what we, on a whole, you know, when we listen to music, that's very strategic.
I was reading an article this morning with the rapper T.I., and someone was asking him about violence in rap lyrics and whatnot. And what he said completely agrees with that concept of narrative. What he said is that our lyrics come from our life, from our environment. So if you want to change the lyrics, change our environment. And this concept of manhood that we're talking about, it seems to me that for blackness and manhood, the concepts of manhood as defined for blackness have been equal to exactly the same as the concepts of criminality. And so to be a man, a black man, because of the profit in our systems, has meant to do activities that white people find criminal in blackness only. And so that's where they end up. And that's what happens. At one point after the end of slavery, over a quarter of all of the state revenue in the state of Alabama came from the licensing of criminals, came from the work of criminals. We are still doing that. We think that slavery is outlawed in America. It is not. The 13th Amendment. No, listen. The
13th Amendment.
Yeah. 13th Amendment says that slavery is outlawed except as a punishment for criminality.
Yes.
And so the concepts, you know, you're talking about the freedom schools and us not knowing our Constitution.
Right.
These are the things,
Yes.
you know, that hold us in place.
Right.
So that all of the things that if you protect your family, if you bring in good money, if you do this, that are rewarded in whiteness for malehood, are deemed criminality. You know, if you drive a car that you shouldn't be in because of your color, then you must have stolen it. Then you know, and all of the assumptions are that if you have acted in ways that whiteness approves of, then you must have done something illegal to be there, to get that, to do that.
Can I answer that? I don't want to just be too big
I'm just
conversation.
saying, but this is what I think about 24/7.
I had the occasion to be invited to, and this answer this is school to prison type of.
Yeah.
I had occasion to be invited to greet students Monday morning at one of our high schools in the area, and I was really honored to do that. But and what I found was that there were two doors that students were allowed to come in, and both of them had metal Now, anyway, so the babies come into the door, right? And when they get in, they have to empty their pockets. Now, it's not just take what's out, but empty them until the white in your pocket is turned inside out, right? Okay, and then once you do that, put your book bag on the counter and everything that's in it, I'm pulling out. Now, I'm intruding on anything that you think is privacy. It ain't happening. And I'm thinking, look, you know, this is like trying to catch a plane. I'm like, y'all need to get your shoes off and take the clothes off and turn them up so you can do, you know, an anal check or whatever, because it was that intrusive to me. Now, they're coming through that. And my job is to greet them.
And make them feel welcome.
No, seriously. And I because I know the intent was a good thing, but when I got away and my mind started working through that, I was like, hey, this is such a contradiction, and how would I feel?
Yes.
If you're telling me I'm welcome, yet everything about me you have already dived into to make sure, and you told me you don't trust me and I'm a criminal.
Yes.
And in order to walk in, this is an urban school. Now let me explain. I'm supervised student teacher, so I get to go to schools all around the area, right? I don't go through a metal detector in Grand Blanc. I don't go through a metal detector in Jersey. I don't go through a metal detector in Lapeer. I don't go through a metal detector anywhere around the city. I go through a metal detector only where there are black children
Yes.
in majority. That's a sin. That's a crime. That is a crime.
And yet all the school shooters have been white.
That's a crime. Now, yeah, it's like we done with something, but it's still a crime that you make all the kids pay for what a few do. And you know, and that's just the way America is. It's just you penalize everybody, but to have your rights, you know, the indignity of the intrusion. And I know, you know, they'll say, well, you know, we're just protecting everybody. Yeah. What you're doing is telling a child that you're not trustworthy, so whatever you do in these walls, what we get is what we set up to get.
Yes. How?
Yeah, and Joyce, what makes it even worse was if any student was there and saw an adult come in, we all went through the metal detectors and know he's at work.
Yep.
Right.
Right. We trust you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to hear from some folks that maybe haven't
Yeah.
said that much. As I said, like, I'm interested in dialogue. I want to hear what you have to say.
I'm wondering how you have conversations with young black men, youth. How you get across. I have a few examples in our neighborhood where somebody tried very, very hard to talk. The boys were working for some yard work, and they were being compensated, and she was trying to teach them, you know, you do this, you will be rewarded now for your doing.
It's a very difficult thing.
And she's she's disheartening.
I'm a juvenile detention specialist, so I plan on resigning. I haven't officially done that. And I can talk about those reasons later. But first, you have to have a relationship. You have to have a relationship with them. You can't be always talking down to them. Because these kids are talked down to all the time. They just say that blah, 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 blah. So you have to, first of all, you have to have a relationship with them so that when the bad times come, you can go to that relationship and lean on that. You know, like if the kid doesn't know you from a can of paint, they're not going to be listening to what you have to say.
She had mentored.
Also, try not to reprimand them in front of their peers, because they're going to do that male thing, and you're in trouble. Also, try to, for every negative thing you have to say, have already said 6 positive things. Okay?
So what have you done then?
Some kids are just bad.
But they're not bad.
I've been working in the juvenile detention center for about 6 years now. Some kids just need a hug. Some kids just need a hug. Some kids just need a platform to launch from. And some kids are just so broken. Keep them locked up before they hurt themselves or someone else. It amazes me, like I see them there and they'll pray before their meals. But if they saw me with the watch that they liked, in their opinion, God brought me to them. There's no connection between what God actually is or represents and taking, the watch. Like when I first got into this, I thought I could help all these kids. Like I'm there, Carlton Evans is going to save the world. But I quickly realized that if only one of them heard what I was saying every other month, I was accomplishing something. Because a lot of these kids come from broken homes. Their parents are broken. There was a kid there, he came from Chicago, and until he got into the youth center and spent a year there, his hero was Hitler. It's a black kid, his hero was Hitler because his mother was a gangster, his dad was a gangster. When the cops pulled up into the projects, people came out with their guns and the cops left. To him that was power, to him that was good. That's what was modeled for him. And that's what he understood. There were other kids there that said, how come I had to go to the youth center before somebody cared for me? How come I had to go to the youth center before I got a certificate of recognition? It's sad, but it's the reality. It's the reality. So some of them you can talk to and they'll get it, and some of them you're just wasting your time. Just like adults. Some adults you can talk to, some of them you're wasting your time. Yes, Mr. Brown. I have to acknowledge Mr. Brown. Here's the reason that I am here today.
So, going back to the school event, and Brother Hubert in the front table here organizes that. The alternative in looking at that situation, and I heard different people in line as we were reading people, more or less said, those metal detectors don't define you. You're better than that. And nobody quite said it like that, but the positive feedback to young people coming through and greeting the school is, you get to define yourself, and this situation here does not define you. So empowering young people. Pardon?
Except that it does. You can tell me that 1,000 times, but if I have to walk through that metal detector 1,010 times?
So, yeah, but here's the reality of that. We can say, yes, we understand that, but if I'm in that space, in that moment, I either have the choice of going, well, that defines you, you're done, or I can try to overcome that with people. So, I hear what you're saying, but also, I'm more positive than that. I don't want to tell people or young people, well, you're already defined this way, you're done. Because young people are better than that.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that if you're just that one voice and 1,000 others are telling them every day,
So what are you going to do to change the other 1,000 voices?
Well, number one, I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And I teach every day.
Yeah.
And I teach about issues of race and
Yeah.
all of these things. But giving people, just saying to somebody, oh, you're a good person, doesn't cut it. It just doesn't. It's not enough.
Of course it's not enough, but the absence of that is to not do anything.
No, it's not. There's 1,000 other things that I can do.
But
Number
that's
one, I can get,
So
I can
this
get
is-
the metal detectors out of the school.
Yeah, so
I can lower class sizes. I can make sure that there are more teachers who look like the students. I can do a billion other
yeah, but
things.
so just try to hear what I'm trying to say, because I'm hearing what you say. But this is a long journey, and this is that we all have to do things. You can say that back to me if you want to and laugh at me, and that's
No,
fine.
I'm laughing because of the
But-
concept of a long journey. Black people know ingredients.
I understand that. I totally understand that. I understand that. You know, but what I'm trying to say is that everything that we do that has a positive influence has meaning to it. But we should not ridicule anything that moves us towards greater healing and greater
What
wholeness.
I've learned in talking about these issues that lots of times we want to say either or, but it's not about either or. It's about both.
It is both, yeah.
Obviously, it's sojourn truth, that's, that's not a problem, but the concept of just saying, well, just tell them good things, doesn't balance out the.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that.
And it's really important that we understand that just telling kids good things isn't enough, because if we think that that's what we have to do,
Yeah, and I didn't say that, okay? I didn't say that.
Who put the metal detectors in the first place?
for whom?
I mean, where actually, that's the question.
Who
Made the decision?
School board.
At who's the best?
And
The
who's
superintendent.
protected us?
They've been there a long time.
It's normalized. It's been there so long, it's normalized.
And who are they supposed to protect?
And the question is, when do we go back and reevaluate the value? And when do we begin to look at the results of having medical tests? I'm just saying, talk about that, let's do the research. Has it cut down on crime? Is there an alternative way that does not impact student self-esteem? Like students, for us to do what we did, we're trying to counter something. We're trying to counter something when we're working on this end. When I agree, we need to work on that end. When we just, and you look around, there are other ways to deal with young people. If it's crime that you're worried about in the schools, then there are other ways to deal with that than having metal detectors that clearly sets up a prison. It clearly sets up. Look, I'm thinking already. All y'all need is y'all fatigues on and a number, and don't go home, because this is clearly. I'm telling you guys, it's like it's ingrained. It's the unspoken curriculum that you never have to teach a child.
That's right.
You never have to articulate to teach them. It's that subtle thing. It's that subtle thing that's just going in, it's seeping in, and it's done. It's done. And then you can sit and say, well, I don't know why all these kids going to prison.
George, you know what we're going to do on Neighborhoods Without Borders? We're going to organize and call on this school district to revisit the Northwestern detector. That's part of our commitment, so let's raise that question. Let's go back to the school board and the superintendent and ask how long and what kind of stats and why they're still using them and if they still need them.
Why did they start in the first place to use them?
We should ask them, we should ask those questions. Nobody's probably asked those questions, Joyce. Joyce. Joyce, I'm looking at you yet to kind of lead them.
Oh, is that what that was?
Okay. Volunteer. I'm looking for a
I'm
volunteer.
good.
Yep,
I wrote it down.
the reward for good work is more